Societal impact and ethical and social issues. Summary. The ethics of science and technology. Humans impact the environment in which they live in positive and negative ways, and these impacts are sometimes magnified with science and technological advancements. The use of new scientific advancements must always be measured with ethical considerations. Additionally, humans should work toward mitigating harm to the environment so that Earth can support life for future generations. It is important to conserve Earth's natural resources so that they do not run out. It took millions of years for oil to form underground, and humans have learned to extract and use that oil for energy. The extraction process and use of oil takes carbon that was trapped underground and releases it back into the ecosystem, impacting the Earth's climate. Reducing energy use and shifting to renewable energy sources such as solar and wind can help conserve natural resources. Here are some key efforts to protect and conserve natural resources. Habitat protection. Habitat conservation is a management practice that seeks to conserve, protect, and restore habitats and prevent species extinction, fragmentation, or reduction in range. Species protection. Wildlife conservation aims to protect plant and animal species as the human population encroaches on their resources. The Endangered Species Act of 1973 establishes protections for fish, wildlife, and plants that are listed as threatened or endangered. National parks are a protected area by the government for the preservation of wildlife. Biodiversity is the variety of life in an ecosystem. There are 5 main factors that cause the loss of biodiversity. Habitat loss is the destruction of an ecosystem's plant, soil, hydrologic, and nutrient resources. Invasive species are any species that disrupts the ecosystem it colonizes. Overexploitation, the process of harvesting too many animals, aquatic or terrestrial, causing the loss or overabundance of certain species. Pollution, the addition of a substance to an ecosystem at a rate faster than can be rendered harmless. And global climate change, the increase of the average global temperature due to gases in the atmosphere. Human activity is the main cause of the loss of biodiversity. Consumers can choose to purchase items that are made from recycled materials, completing the recycling chain. Environmentally friendly consumer products include LED light bulbs, buying clothes made from recycled fabrics, reusing shopping bags, and refilling reusable water bottles. Companies could omit certain pollutants and dangerous chemicals from their ingredient lists to lower the amount of those chemicals making their way into the ecosystem. Green building is the practice of creating structures using processes that are environmentally responsible and resource efficient throughout a building's life cycle, from location to design, construction, operation, maintenance, renovation, and deconstruction. Extraction of minerals. In this process, the rock is drilled and blasted, then moved to the surface by truck, belt conveyor, or elevator. Once at the surface, the material is sent to a mill to separate the ore from the waste rock. The primary methods used to extract minerals from the ground are underground mining, surface or open pit mining, and placer mining, mining in riverbeds where small concentrations of the target mineral are found and separated by water flow. During the gold rush in the United States in the 1800s, gold was mined by passing water flows through sluice boxes where the heavier gold flakes sink to the bottom of the box. Issues with the use and extraction of Earth's resources. If proper care is not taken, extracting and using Earth's resources can result in deforestation, desertification, extinction of species, forced migration, soil erosion, oil depletion, ozone depletion, and greenhouse gas increase. Common forestry and wildlife practices. Deforestation is the action of clearing a wide area of trees. The land is then converted to non-forest use, including farms, ranches, or urban use. The areas most affected by deforestation are tropical rainforests. Deforestation can lead to habitat reduction of native species. Human interactions, including habitat loss and poaching, can lead to the loss of biodiversity in an area. Sometimes wildlife are driven to extinction from human impact. Common fisheries practices. Overfishing is a major practice that impacts today's fish populations. It occurs when the removal of a species of fish is greater than the rate in which the population can replenish naturally. This results in a major decrease in the population for that area and can lead to extinction. Some programs are working on solutions to overfishing, including banning government subsidies that encourage fishing where it would not have been economical, creating marine wildlife preserves, eliminating bycatch, and banning overfishing of endangered species. Space exploration. Every time a rocket is launched into space, there is a great deal of air pollution created. According to Dallas Kasabowski, principal analyst at the space consultancy Northern Sky Research, one short spaceflight lasting around 1.5 hours can generate as much pollution as a regular 10-hour transatlantic flight. Rockets that reach space emit pollution into much higher up layers of the atmosphere, the effects of which have not yet been determined. As of yet, there haven't been enough rocket launches to notice any real changes. But as space tourism picks up steam, there will likely be negative effects on the environment. Rocket launches typically release a significant amount of chlorine into the atmosphere, which is very efficient at destroying the ozone layer. Communication. Methods of communication have come a long way since the telephone was invented in 1876. Computers and mobile phones gained usefulness and popularity in the 1990s. Social media took off in 2002, creating even more streams of communication between people. 20 years later, people are more connected than ever with Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Reddit, etc. With the pandemic of 2020, video conferencing software like Zoom and Google Meet took center stage, reducing the need for in-person meetings. As of 2020, approximately 78% of the world's population owned a smartphone. Medicine and disease. Science is the foundation of a strong healthcare system. Medical advice has changed throughout the decades as more scientific studies have been done. One of the greatest achievements of modern science is the success of vaccines. For most of human history, there were deadly and prevalent diseases. In modern times, there are vaccinations available for most of the dangerous diseases known to humans that has greatly extended human life expectancy. The speed with which effective COVID-19 vaccines were developed was due to years of research, testing, and the improvement of vaccine technology. Nutrition. Nutrition advice has changed through the decades as more scientific studies have been done. There are many technological innovations that are focused on nutrition problems. Technology is making it easier to comprehend the world of nutrition and creating tools that can help people make better, more informed choices. QR code readers are available that scan food items to list the ingredients and the nutrition properties to help determine if the food is healthy and nutritious. Infection, disease, and development. Less developed, poorer countries typically have higher rates of infectious disease. it is harder to maintain healthy waste removal processes. This allows pathogens to reproduce in open waste areas where children may play or animals may scavenge. The pathogens are then passed on to the general population. There is less access to healthcare facilities and antibiotic medications to treat infectious diseases caused by bacteria and other pathogens. Also, there is a lack of treatment and filtration for drinking water and sewage treatment, which exposes people to bacterial and viral pathogens in water, often from human waste. Tropical climates and more open-air living can expose people to vectors like mosquitoes, as there is less money for vector eradication, spraying the mosquito breeding grounds. Malaria is a parasitic protist or pathogen infection caused by the bite of infected mosquitoes, the vector. It is most common in sub-Saharan Africa and seen in other tropical regions of the Middle East, Asia, and South and Central America. It leads to severe, reoccurring flu-like symptoms and kills mostly children under 5. Malaria can be combated with insecticide spray and was eradicated in the United States in 1951. Biotechnology. Biotechnology is the use of biology to solve problems and make products. The 4 types of biotechnology are medical, for drug development, industrial, for plant-based plastics, environmental, like genetically modified crops, and marine, for things like biodegradation. Biotechnology began with the cultivation of plants in agriculture. This continued on with the fermentation of plants to create beer. More recently, the use of genetically modified organisms has helped farmers grow crops in less fertile areas so more people can be fed efficiently. To help clean up the environment, scientists use processes such as biofiltration and biodegradation. Biodegradation is the breakdown of organic matter by microorganisms, such as bacteria and fungi. Biofiltration uses living material to capture and biologically degrade pollutants. This is a common way to clean up wastewater. Medical technologies. Science has helped medical technologies greatly. For example, nurses use handheld devices to monitor patients' vital signs and instantly update their medical records. Laboratories can process blood samples and then upload results immediately to patient portals so the patients can see the results instantly. Doctors and patients have never been more connected than they are now. In the last few years, more doctors' appointments have moved to a virtual setting, allowing patients in more remote areas to access medical care in major cities. Telemedicine became even more popular with the COVID-19 pandemic. Even just having a portal where doctors and patients can email back and forth has been a huge improvement in communication. Bioethics. Professional fields all have related but different definitions of ethics. Bioethics is the study of ethical, social, and legal issues that arise in biomedicine and biomedical research. There are many ways to discuss the principles of any type of ethics. One set of principles that fit bioethics are the following. Autonomy. Any moral decision-making assumes that rational agents are involved in making informed and voluntary decisions. Beneficence is a duty to be of benefit to the patient or society. Non-maleficence means we do no harm to the patient or society. And justice implies the fair distribution of goods in society and requires that we look at the role of entitlement. Ethical research concerns stem cells. Stem cells develop into the specialized cells of the body. For example, a stem cell can turn into a blood cell, muscle cell, or brain cell. Stem cell therapy, also known as regenerative medicine, promotes the repair response of diseased, dysfunctional, or injured tissue using stem cells or their derivatives. Stem cell therapy could help close the gap among patients, allowing medical access to all classes of populations. Stem cells can also be used in research, including embryonic stem cell research. The embryos being used in embryonic stem cell research come from eggs that were fertilized at in vitro fertilization clinics, but never implanted into a woman's uterus. Ethical concerns arise with the research as it involves the destruction of human embryos. Stem cell technology. Scientists are developing methods for using stem cells to treat cancer and other ailments. A trachea, or windpipe, was grown from harvested adult stem cells. It was used to replace a woman's damaged windpipe. Because the stem cells were her own, there was no chance for rejection by her immune system. Embryonic stem cell technology. Presently, embryonic stem cells have been used primarily for research. Potential for technologies exist, but currently no product has been produced. The use of embryonic cells is ethically and politically controversial, but will not be addressed here. Promising research using embryonic stem cells are things like tissue engineering for organ transplants, in vitro models to test drug response and predict toxicity, creation of neurons for the treatment of Parkinson's disease, and alternative treatments for diabetes. Cloning. Cloning is the process of producing individual organisms with identical or virtually identical DNA, either by natural or artificial means. In reproductive cloning, researchers remove a mature somatic cell, such as a skin cell, from an animal they wish to copy. They then transfer the DNA of the donor animal's somatic cell into an immature egg cell, oocyte, that had its own DNA-containing nucleus removed. Researchers add the DNA from the somatic cell to the empty egg in two different ways. In the first method, they remove the DNA-containing nucleus of the somatic cell with a needle and inject it into the empty egg. In the second approach, they use an electrical current to fuse the entire somatic cell with the empty egg. In both processes, the egg is allowed to develop into an early-stage embryo in the test tube and then is implanted into the womb of an adult female animal. Ultimately, the adult female gives birth to an animal that has the same genetic makeup as the animal that donated the somatic cell. This young animal is referred to as a clone. Reproductive cloning may require the use of a surrogate mother to allow development of the cloned embryo. In 1997, scientists cloned Dolly the sheep as the first mammal ever to be cloned. Since then, scientists have been researching how to possibly clone organs for transplants. Some discussion has also turned to the chances of cloning humans for either research purposes or also for organ transplants. Ethical issues specific to human cloning include the safety and efficacy of the procedure, cloning for destructive embryonic stem cell research, the effects of reproductive cloning on the child-parent relationship, and the use of human life as a research product. Ethical use of technology, GMO. Genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, have been used in agricultural practices for centuries. Originally, farmers would crossbreed plants for specific traits leading to different vegetation. This is also known as artificial selection. Humans were not directly modifying the organism genomes. GMOs are now created by genetic engineering techniques where a genetic sequence is transferred from one organism into another with the help of certain bacteria. Genetic technologies are used to address the problem of trypanosomiasis, or sleeping sickness, in sub-Saharan African cattle. A disease-resistant gene in an indigenous cow has been identified, along with its DNA sequence. The goal is to move that gene into the genome of a domesticated cow to improve its resistance. The genetic engineering approaches to making transgenic cows are similar to the methods used to make genetically modified crops. Genes from other organisms can be introduced into crops to improve their nutrition content, make them resistant to pests, extreme temperatures, drought, and high salt, and make them less dependent on nitrogen fertilizer. One of the earliest GM crops developed is the insect-resistant cowpea. Golden rice. One of the most successful uses of genetic engineering for food has been the development of golden rice. 2 genes that synthesize beta-carotene that leads to vitamin A were inserted into rice, transforming it into golden rice. Regular rice has 0 vitamin A. Golden rice is critical in areas where vitamin A is in short supply in people's diets. Vitamin A shortage leads to vision problems that range from mild to very severe, including blindness, as well as diarrhea and measles in children. There are drawbacks of making transgenic farm animals and GM crops. It is time-consuming, expensive, and requires trained technicians and laboratories. Some transgenic animals and GM crops are not as healthy as their natural counterparts, and some complications cannot be foreseen. There is concern that the transgenes could spread into wild or indigenous populations, disrupting the normal course of evolution. Crops that are bred for size, early ripening, or shelf life may not have the same nutritional value or flavor as their wild ancestors. Nevertheless, these techniques are being used all over the world to improve agricultural productivity. Security of genetic information. Genetic biobanks, a collection of genetic samples usually collected by direct-to-consumer genetic testing kits. Genetic testing kits like 23andMe collect genetic samples of individuals for ancestry testing as well as health tests and are stored in biobanks around the world. The security of this genetic information is only recently being considered. The Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, GINA, introduced in 2008, protects individuals against discrimination based on their genetic information in health coverage and in employment.